Madam, today in the discussion related to the Finance Bill of 2021, 25 honorable members have participated and spoken. Many of them have spoken elaborately on the finance bill itself, whilst many others have spoken on matters related but rather on the budget. But because many of the issues that have been raised are fairly important and they have repercussions in the sense of information that is in the minds of the honorable MPs, which can of course later be communicated to the society at large. I would, even if they refer to the budget rather than the Finance Act, Finance Bill, I will certainly try to give the explanations. But the bill per se, I'd like to highlight a few points, although many of the members have actually gone through the details and spoken very elaborately, and I'm very grateful that they spoke so elaborately on it. But one or two features of this finance bill I'd like to highlight. There is no change in the rate of income tax. That is one thing which I would like to say with a certain sense of responsibility, because this is a point on which, even as the budget was being prepared, the Prime Minister was clear that we are not going to generate resources by raising tax to meet the contingency which has arisen out of the corona. So very clearly references to income tax have to be in that context. However, there are certain kind of changes being made in the Income Tax Act which are largely focused on the issue of ease of doing business, compliance which will have to be brought down, because repeatedly in the public domain you have a lot of thinkers, think tanks, and also observers of Indian economy saying that the compliance burden on businesses is so big, some even quoting in thousands, which may not be very close to the facts, but having gone through the reports and also having spent some time on what are the ways in which we can simplify compliances, changes in this finance bill also pertain, particularly referring to the Income Tax Act, pertain to ease of doing business. There are some rate changes in the customs which are also being shown here. Again, in the Customs Tariff Act and the Central Excise and many others, ease of doing business is also kept in when we are trying to rationalize the acts. In fact, during my budget speech, I had mentioned that from now, from 1st of April till October, we will be, till end of August, we will be looking at rationalizing the existing Customs Act and any duties which have been levied over the decades, which are all lying there without finding a closure date, will all be put for public discussions, and we shall continue with that exercise of rationalizing and simplifying customs. So even in this finance bill, some of the aspects are beginning that exercise. So eventually we will hope to have a complete structure for the customs which is going to be absolutely simple. There's been a lot of discussion on the agricultural infrastructure development cess. In the larger context of cesses per se, cess and surcharges being charges levied by the central government which don't get devolved. So certain concern has been repeatedly said by very many members. I will address it particularly in the context of the agricultural infrastructure development cess, which is very important in the context of wanting to create more infrastructure for agriculture, and agriculture largely, particularly in the context of APMCs and marketing yards, is a complete affair within the state governments. And therefore, even as a beginning, I would like to tell you that something which I cited during the budget speech, I shall repeat even now, the AIDC, the Agricultural Infrastructure Development cess, will have to go to the states because it is for improving the infrastructure in the APMCs. It is for the farmyards to have better infrastructure. So the cess may be a cess which never gets devolved, but it is a cess which eventually is for the purpose of improving infrastructure for agriculture and the farmyards and the marketing yards being with the state governments will have to go to the states only. So that one opening remark as regards the agricultural infrastructure development cess. There are in the finance bill a few new proposals which are being added, which are very much in a minor nature. But one thing which I want to highlight is the new proposal which is coming as tax exemption, which is being given for the National Bank for financing infrastructure and development. Because this is a very important step that we are taking, we want to have, all of you are aware, Madam Chairperson, we had announced an infrastructure pipeline, and that pipeline has already identified greenfield and brownfield projects, 7,000 of them, and rapidly with the state governments, we need to have them constructed, built, and some with private participation also. But for all of that, we need resources to be raised. Scheduled commercial banks should not be getting into long-term infrastructure funding, because that's not core business for a bank. Banks should be lending short-term and earning money out of it, and the kind of risks that infrastructure investment require cannot be faced by the scheduled commercial banks, and therefore there is a need felt to have a development finance institution. The bill is already introduced in this August House, and for that we need to give some tax exemptions, and that's where that is also being brought in here. But instead of me elaborating on very many points, I thought it was important for me, because members have actually covered extensive areas about which they have asked questions. So in the form of answering members who have raised the questions, I think I will be able to cover majority of the issues which have been raised about the finance bill. I'll start with the Honorable Member Shri Amar Singh ji, who spoke on very many things. I'm grateful indeed, unusual, and pardon me, Shri Bittuji is seated in front taking care of the opposition. I'd like to make a statement. It is made with a fairly objective heart. It was very much a pleasing experience to have a member from the opposition benches recognizing some of the good work done by this government. I honestly do want to praise and put that on record, that there is a member in the opposition, particularly in the Congress benches, who went into the details of the finance bill, who picked out points on which he thought appropriate action was taken, timely action was taken. Although he did have points, and I grant him that space, although he did have points where he wanted the government to do better or could have done differently, I'm quite happy to hear the criticism. But I was also pleasantly surprised, and for a change, coming from the Congress benches, a recognition that the government is getting its act. So thank you, Honorable Member Amar Singh ji. But on one point on which you did raise, the question as to why should there be customs duty imposed on items like nut, bolts and screws, which are normally used in every household, also on toys and so on. I thought it's fairly obvious, particularly considering the fact that many of such items are being produced by MSMEs all through the country. And India's MSMEs have got the capability to produce many of these items. Punjab is quite famous for these kind of work, toys, shoes, sportswears. Many of them are small units who are all doing it. And as opposed to that, absolutely thrown for pittance rate imports were coming in, whose quality was inferior to those which are being manufactured in India, whose safety standards, particularly for toys, the safety standards were pathetic. And many of our, not just me, but even ministers before me in commerce, had taken all kinds of standards, toys from coming in from you know where. So we have applied our mind and looked at the final consumer goods which are being manufactured in India. There are MSMEs who are manufacturing them, and we didn't have to import them. Therefore, on those units, those items, we have imposed a duty. That has been a very carefully taken decision. It is not supposed to be on raw materials which are coming for, let us say, MSMEs. These are finished goods which are being made by MSMEs in India, and therefore it wasn't as if we wanted to tax those goods which are not being produced in India, which are necessary for us. I move over to a point which Sri Midun Reddy from YSRCP raised about GST invoices, penalties for those companies which have fake GST invoice allegations and whose properties are being attached. I want to make it absolutely clear on this, and just not on this, but on many of the issues which are being questioned on GST. Madam Chairperson, issues related to GST, when they are being posed to the Finance Minister, I take it on board, I will work on them. But the GST related matters are not Ministry of Finance matters. They are the GST Council matters in which many of the states, all states' finance ministers are members. It's a collective decision of the council to take a decision and do it this way or do it that way, and without the council's clearance, no step is taken. So it's not as if the finance minister sitting in the North Block says, right, go attach this property. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, and therefore we, first of all, on everything to do with GST, I want to be absolutely sure it is a decision emanating out of the decision taken by the council. And with that said, I want to be sure that I am able to answer Sri Midun Reddy ji. It has been noticed that it is difficult to recover penalties levied on the persons who are involved in fake GST invoices. It's just becoming impossible. The proposed provision, which is what the Honorable Member has referred to, would ensure collection of this penalty and would help in discouraging the practice of fake invoices. Further, this provision would be applicable for only those big fraud cases where the amount of fake invoice is 2 crores or more. It's not going to be even touching people who are faking lesser than that. So I'm only touching those fake invoices of 2 crores or more. So I want you, Honorable Member, to actually extend your helping hand by telling members out there in the businesses to say we are not touching everybody, but if you have a fake invoice allegation on you for over 2 crores or more, and we are not able to get even the penalty back, and the assets are sitting there of that person, as a result, the income of the government is coming down, fake is, spreading. How do you contain it? So I would want you as an honorable member to please go convince people that they don't need to be frightened if they had no fake allegations.
Ma'am, I absolutely don't have any issue with action being taken on fraudsters, but I was only referring to the issue of harassment on people related to the transaction, like chartered accountants or managers in the company. So any person who has done fraud needs to be brought to justice. But what I was talking about is, like, there should not be any harassment on the other people. So if it's done on the owners of the company, it's fine, but not on the accountants, not on the managers, and not on the other things. Ma'am, we don't have a say in the GST Council. Who else should we talk to, ma'am? You're the only person for us. We have.
My mic is not on. You don't have an access to the GST Council? Chairman, sir, I would like to tell the honorable member, the finance minister of Andhra Pradesh is an honorable member of the GST Council. You have every access to it.
It's not that, ma'am. Where, as a parliament member, which other discussion can I raise this, ma'am? Okay. And you being there, I think you should influence the other people also to take a favorable decision. Andhra is just one state in 25, 26 states. So we have nobody else other than you to represent us there, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome to raise, but I'll also give my reply, which includes that your finance minister is also equally accessible, and you should really. The other issue you raised was that on the issue, sir, of the Finance Commission probably not incentivizing states which have performed well, particularly on criteria of population. I would like to submit through you, Chairperson, sir, that states, particularly on this fact, that the last time the Finance Commission prepared its report, the 2011 census was used, and as a result now, because of the performance-related index, on population, particularly southern states, in your case you refer to AP, have suffered. I want to put it on record here to incentivize states who have enforced population control measures. 15th Finance Commission has provided a weightage of 12.5% for demographic performance. They've given a weightage. As per this criteria, therefore, states with lower fertility, some of the southern states, inclusive of Andhra Pradesh, states with lower fertility rate will get greater interstate share. AP has an interstate share of 6.635% in the demographic performance. Criteria compared to overall interstate share of 4.047%. So yours is much higher than the average. It may be mentioned that in the 14th Finance Commission period, overall share was 4.305%. So the Finance Commission has already provided a weightage of 12.5% of the for demographic performance. Under this criteria, states that have lower fertility rate will get higher share. For this component, particularly the subcomponent, AP has 6.635%. So that's been addressed even by the Finance Commission. So, Vinod Rawat, Vinayak Raoji of Shiv Sena had raised quite a few important points. Of course, on the petrol and diesel, the agricultural infrastructure development cess, questions have been raised, which I'm broadly covering, which was already explained that this cess was brought in. I'm telling you on a broad note. Customs duty, I sat through this exercise more than 3 times before the budget terms were finalized. The customs duty was brought down. The cess was imposed for agricultural infrastructure development cess. It was imposed far lesser than the quantum of the reduction in the customs duty. So if 10 rupees of customs duty was brought down and a cess was imposed on it on a particular item, it did not touch 10, it was stopped at 6 or 7, or some cases it was just 5. The principle being that eventually that particular importer of that particular product, on whom the basic custom duty of 10 rupees was on, will end up paying that much only or lesser, but never more. So, end incidence of that agricultural infrastructure development cess on that particular item is that much only or lesser, but not more. So I want you to appreciate the principle with which we have gone ahead. Much before I go over to talking about the GST, you've also, Honorable Member Vinayak Raoji had also raised the new TCS provision, which imposes a tax for sale over 50 lakhs as being burdensome. The TCS is only at the rate of 0.1%. It's not even 1%, it's not even 0.5%. It is 0.1%. It applies only to those big taxpayers whose turnover is more than 10 crores in the year before. It was imposed last year in the Finance Act of 2020. It is not now, it was imposed even then, and it is intended to widen the tax net. Honorable Member Pinaki Mishra was voicing his concern, which is a concern of the entire House, which is a concern I have too. We need to widen the tax base. And TCS is never an additional tax. It is levied, but you can always reconcile with actually what you have to pay. So if you've got something less which has been paid, you can always adjust this. This is not an additional tax. It is a tax collected, but you can always adjust it to the tax due. So credit for tax collected is allowed, and hence it is not an additional tax. So it's not actually a burden. I want to highlight that. Member Vinayak Rao ji also raised question about vaccination, the burden on people who have to take it. You, honorable member, may be aware, vaccination even today in government hospitals is for free. Yeah. Anybody who goes through the COVID and goes to the government hospital gets it for free. So there is no burden on the poor who have to go get vaccinated. It's not being charged. And the last of the points which Member Vinayak Rao raised, which many other members also raised, bring petrol and diesel into GST. As I said, and one other member, honorable member, also said, the highest tax today on petrol and diesel, honorable chairperson, is in Maharashtra. Navneet Rana ji mentioned it probably. So I'm not pointing out whether one state is more or less or whatever. The point is, states also tax fuel, not just the center. And when the center taxes, it's part of, it's not a cess. So it's part of the devolvable amount. So if I collect 100 rupees out of taxing petrol or diesel, of the 100 rupees, 41% goes to the states. So everything that I tax will have to be also given, so long as, of course, it's not a cess or a surcharge. So fuel tax that the center does is shared with the states. But the long and short of it, center also taxes, state also tax. And if there is this concern, and rightly members have a concern about fuel tax, and why not come into GST, I would honestly think, based on today's discussion, many of the states would be watching this, and in the next GST Council, if that discussion comes up, I'll be glad to have it on the agenda and discuss it. I have no issues. Let the states come and discuss it. It has to be taken as a call there. I move to the next issue, where many members probably refer to it, but some members did say about the reduction in the reopening of cases, income tax cases. What was 6 years was brought down to 3. So there was also this confusion about, whereas what was 6-year limit has now gone up to 10-year limit. Members are conceding that where it was 6 years, you brought it down to 3, which is good, but where it was 6 years, you took it up to 10. No, we have not increased the number of years for which the scrutiny or assessment survey can be done. What was 6 years was brought down to 3. Already for 10 years, when it can be opened up, we actually brought in a condition by saying only where up to 50 lakh of undisclosed income is in question, and only in such cases will it be opened, and it can be opened for up to 10 years. For that, even then, the opening can happen only with the approval of the principal commissioner. Otherwise, they cannot go open it. 2 conditions, right? One is 50 lakh or more undisclosed income, and if you have some proof in your hand, then you may open it. But even then, you will open it only after taking the approval of the principal commissioner, otherwise you can't touch it. So that is what has been done. So not take it to 10 years, but actually give relief for less than 50 lakhs, even if it's undisclosed. There is a great relief in that only for 50 lakhs and above, questionable undisclosed income, we are saying you could open it. So there's no confusion there. Then again, for foreign assets reopening, there was time limit of 16 years, which has been reduced to 3 years. This must be restored to 16 years, was Honorable Member's comment. So my reply on that point is, for foreign undisclosed assets, the Black Money Act would be applicable, and for action under that act, there is no time limit. So I can't raise it from 5 to 10 or 15 to 16 or anything. It is the Black Money Act which governs there. So Member Ritesh Pandey spoke about the Equalization Levy. Yeah. And he said is tax on online transactions, it's an extra burden and discourages online transaction. This government is very much in favor of digital transactions. We'll never do anything to undermine it. But yet, Equalization Levy is a tax which has been imposed to give level playing field between Indian businesses who pay tax in India and foreign e-commerce companies who do business in India but do not pay any income tax here. So let's be clear. We are only trying through the Equalization Levy to treat everybody who's operating in India equally. And if they pay income tax here, the e-commerce companies which are foreign, if they pay income tax here, then the Equalization Levy is not applicable on them. Hence, there is no extra burden on any company. And then through the government amendment that I'm moving today, I intend to clarify that this Equalization Levy is not applicable on consideration for goods which are owned by Indian residents. Thus, the concern raised by the Honorable MP regarding extra burden would not be there at all. Member Supriya Sule, probably, is she here? I can't see her. Oh, yes. Has raised several questions. I first of all want to address this question of 2.5 lakh, which is on the PF, employee contribution on the PF. I think this was responded to even during the budget discussion. I had said that this 2.5 lakh actually covers majority of the people who normally invest money here. They get tax concession. They don't have tax when they withdraw. So that is fully justified. But there was this 1% of people in the EPF contribution who were going up to 5 crores contribution also. Where is 2.5 lakh, which is helpful to all the workers? But that which is being deposited as 5 crores, how many of them are there? Hardly 1%. And this 2.5 is covering majority up to 90, 92%, 93% of the people who are depositing, and I don't think therefore this is going to affect the interest of the workers for whom that interest-free, tax-free, interest, assured interest and tax-free is provided under the scheme. So the limit has been kept, keeping in mind that small and medium taxpayers are not impacted by this step. Through the government amendment that I'm bringing now, I intend to raise this limit to 5 lakh. There's one addition which I want you all to know about. This amount is now being raised to 5 lakhs in those cases, and only in those cases, where there is no contribution by the employer in that fund. So most often it is employee contribution and employer's contribution. But there are contributions which are only employee and no employer contribution is made. In such cases, that amount is raised to 5 lakhs. And then this question about ULIP, where insurance gets linked to the unit. We have segregated that because we wanted to bring in parity for investment with mutual funds as related to the units also. So when units, which is also like mutual fund related fund, and that gets linked up with insurance, we've tried giving a equal treatment. Honorable Member Supriya Sule also spoke about the long staple cotton. The delegation also has met me, but I need to state some facts about cotton here, ma'am. Sorry, I'm taking a bit of time. Actually, cotton imports in this country, the duty was raised from nil to 10% some time ago. And there is some growing of even long staple cotton happening in India. So it's not as if it's completely without, we don't have long staple cotton and therefore taxing us will become disruptive of the industry. No, it's not. And also the fact that long staple cotton is used for very few items of export. The delegation has met me. I'll try to see what I can do about it, but it is not as if we brought this without much of a thought or mind application. I just wanted to explain that to you, ma'am. You have also, Honorable Madam Supriya Sule has also raised this question about Defense Modernization Fund. The answer that I had given earlier is the answer I give you now. We had in principle agreed to it, but no particular details have been worked on it. If the Finance Commission has not recommended a certain formula, the fear that it might be imposed on the states is not well founded at all. We have not taken a call as yet in any case. Yes, I think I found the cotton-related inputs. The import data which we have reveals that all kind of cotton is getting imported in India from large number of countries outside, and it is not true that only one particular kind of cotton, which is the extra long staple cotton, which is being imported. That's not true at all. You can't distinguish long staple from short staple cotton because they don't have two HSN different codes. India is producing good quantity of cotton, including certain quantities of extra long fiber cotton. Imposition of cotton or duty on cotton shall provide much relief for the farmers, which I've explained to you earlier. Member Hasnain Masoodi ji, 74% of insurance, 74% opening up or lifting the ceiling of FDI in insurance will help private insurance, because they are out there in big numbers. I explained that yesterday. They are running short of resources. They don't have enough money in the market to be raised for meeting their developmental expenditure. So that is more towards those private insurers who have come into this country post 2015. The other information is LIC. I got the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that you tried bringing in LIC into that debate. LIC's IPO is for retail investors in India to buy it. In India, retail Indian citizens having a share in LIC is what the IPO is for. That and the FDI are totally different subjects. In fact, yesterday I kept saying, yesterday's FDI related response and the bill had nothing to do with LIC at all. So I want to highlight the fact that they are two different issues. And also one thing which again I want to repeat in the context of Honorable Member Masoodi raising issues here, the government through the budget has announced a strategic sector policy through the policy of public sector enterprises. Financial companies, insurance companies, and banks are all recognized as being part of the strategic sector where the public sector enterprise presence will continue. public sector enterprises will still be there because bare minimum presence at least of public sector will be in those sectors which have been identified as strategic sectors. Of course, for rationalizing, we may amalgamate them. Of course, after amalgamating so that they get the scale, there may be one or two who may not be able to amalgamate. We'll have to see how disinvestment can work on them. So strategic sector includes insurance, includes financial institutions like banks and so on. I'm almost coming to the end so that members know that my reply is not for too long. Honorable Chairman, you've been very kind. You gave me a lot of time. I just want to highlight the fact which I did say earlier. Many MPs have raised issues related to GST. There are frequent changes in the GST law and procedures, imposition of late fee, provisions like attachment of property, and so on. I just want to reiterate the fact that the changes in GST law, procedure, rates are all decided at the GST Council. It's not just me. These recommendations are made by the Council. And after extensive discussions, only then and detailed examination of the recommendations are done through the various committees which are in the GST Council. So it is, I think, important to take into consideration that the GST decisions are very clearly taken by the Council and not the Finance Ministry. Minority affairs. There were very many members who said, no, this is nothing to do with the finance bill, but the budget. At that time also I answered this question, but this seems to be a point which gets repeated. I want to explain it. The allocation for minority affairs has not come down. Let's be clear, please. 1920, the actuals for minority affairs was 4,431.65 crores. And what is it in the BE now? 4,810.77 crores. So it's not come down. The BE in 2021 may have been 5,029. But based on the utilization, the RE is only 4,005 rupees only, 5 crores only, just 4,000 crores. And even over that, I've given 4,810. So let's have this comparison with a bit more details looked into. I'm not getting to the detail of which state has dues from the GST Council. Every state, Honorable Chairperson, sir, if you just allow me 3 datas which I can read out, so that honorable members who come from the various different states are informed. Sir, Honorable Chairperson, sir, GST compensation, because it interests all members, I would like to just say this as my concluding. GST compensation due from April 20 to January 21. April 20 to January 21, 2,17,844 crores. Back-to-back loan released to states to meet compensation shortfall, 1,10,208 crores. Compensation to be released from compensation fund in March 2021, which is this month, before the end of this month, is 30,000 crores. So compensation likely due to states and union territories in the financial year 2020-2021 is 77,636. So let this be in the back of our minds. The breakdown by states is with me. There were particularly loud calls for Maharashtra. I would like to say the GST compensation pending to be released to the states list, which I've read out for the total. Now I'm just telling for Maharashtra, I'm not saying for the other states. Maharashtra, 32,295, that's the compensation due from April 20 to January 21. 11,977 crores have been released to the state of Maharashtra through special borrowing to meet the short release of GST compensation. So that also to be taken on board. Sir, last was Shri Pinaki Mishra, who spoke about disinvestment. You don't have a record. Earlier, what you claimed you didn't achieve. I fully concede that. In a year where your disinvestment was to be achieved, but when the markets were tepid, we couldn't move because in the year 1920, there were also all kinds of stress in the market, so I couldn't see a prospect of being able to successfully engage in disinvestment, so that year the figures were not achieved. I am hopeful now because post-Corona and even during Corona, we saw the way in which the market has been buoyant. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to achieve. On the tax base, you are right. We are trying to simplify the returns and also simplify the filing procedures so that people are attracted towards getting on board and be compliant. Tax rates are also being brought down. Tax disputes, I think we have spoken quite a lot on it, are being settled through various schemes. We shall continue in that mode. Some with Vivad Se Vishwas dates are also being dealt with. Some of the compliances for the startups have also been extended. I think largely, there was one question Honorable Member Amar Singh raised about agriculture ka amount ghata diya. No, I said this even on that day when I was replying. 10,000 crores kam ho gaya hai. कम नहीं हुआ. हम बंगाल को, वेस्ट बंगाल को मन में रखते हुए 10,000 करोड़ बजट में प्रोविजन कर रखा था. बंगाल से किसान का लिस्ट नहीं पहुंचा, इसलिए बंगाल किसान को पैसा नहीं मिला. वो अमाउंट वैसे की वैसे पड़ा हुआ है, इसीलिए वो कम नहीं हुआ, अमाउंट पड़ा ही हुआ है. So I want you to be clear. There's one issue, Danish Ali ji, I've responded to you. Don't keep. नहीं, आपके आवाज इतना भगवान की कृपा से तेज है, मेरे से नहीं होता है. आपको चिल्लाना, इक्वली चिल्लाना नहीं होता मेरे से. Sir, Honorable Chairperson, sir, I want to, on the issue of minority budget, I think Honorable Member Syed Imtiaz Jaleel raised an issue on minority budget. I have answered that. But one point on which I would actually like the Honorable Member to stand up for this House. He referred to, don't take only those reports which are in your favor, because Moody's report was referred to by Hamare member Kotak ji. And he referred to the Freedom Report and said, नहीं, उसका भी आप संज्ञान में लेना चाहिए. संज्ञान में लेके ही Ministry of External Affairs उनको सटीक जवाब दिया है Freedom Report का. मगर मैं मेंबर का मदद चाहती हूँ एक विषय में. कम से कम वो Freedom Report वाले को, जिसका जिक्र आप इधर कर रहे हैं, उनको कह दीजिए भारत के नक्शा, मैप, जो गलत उन्होंने उनको उनके वेबसाइट में, उनके रिपोर्ट में डाले, उसको करेक्ट कर लें. आप उसमें मदद करिए इस हाउस को आप मदद करिए. जिस फ्रीडम का जिक्र इधर कर रही है, नहीं आप बैठ जाइए, रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हूँ. नहीं, आप जिस रिपोर्ट का कर रहे हैं इधर, आप उनको कह दीजिए आप ऐसे क्यों नक्शा बना रहे हैं. और जिस थिंक टैंक ने हमारे नक्शा तक सही नहीं बनाते हैं, उनको जिक्र आप इधर क्यों कर रहे हैं. इस हाउस में कम से कम एक मत होना चाहिए. Thank you, Chairman, sir. I think I've responded to majority of the members. I wish the bill pass.